everybody. Welcome once again to another edition of Quick Trivia with Mike. It's the weekly game show right here on Channel 955 where we test your knowledge of facts, sometimes historical, sometimes a little bit more obscure in terms of how dated they are, sometimes they're contemporary. Hopefully, they're all a lot of fun. I know we're having a lot of fun bringing it to you right here on Channel 955 at East Castle Place. I hope you're having a good time with it. I'm your host and the Quizmaster, Mike Brever. As you know, we always give you 3 questions. Our show begins by revealing the 3 answers from last week, and then we give you 3 new questions for the coming week. So let's get right into it, shall we? And let's see just what happened last week. You know, we talked last week about the fact that this is Black History Month. We talked about the number of senators that have served in the United States Senate that were African Americans. I then pointed out to you that there is a unique situation about former Senator Kamala Harris, a Black American, in that she now serves as Vice President of the United States, but previously she served as a candidate for President of the United States. In keeping with Black History Month, I asked you how many Black women have served as candidates for the highest office in our land. How many women have served as candidates for President of the United States? The answer is 11. 11 women have sought the highest office in our land. It began with Charlene Mitchell. She ran for president in 1968. Of course, most of you have probably not heard about her. The campaign didn't go very far. Shirley Chisholm also became the first Black Congresswoman in 1968. She not only ran for president, but competitively sought the Democratic presidential nomination in 1972. So Charlene Mitchell, Shirley Chisholm, Margaret Wright also ran for president, Isabel Masters, Lenora Fulani, Monica Moorhead, Angel Joy Chavez Rocker, Carol Mosley Brown, Cynthia McKinney, Peta Lindsay, and of course Kamala Harris. So 11 women have sought the highest office in our land and served as candidates for the position of President of the United States. That was the answer to question number 1. 11 African American women have sought the position of President of the United States and served as candidates for that high honor. We then talked a little bit about Prohibition. You know, Prohibition was that era in American history when alcohol was outlawed in the United States. I believe it was the 18th Amendment, which ultimately was overturned, I believe, by maybe the 21st Amendment. It was a period of time that basically extended from 1920 to 1933. We talked about the fact that it really created a lot of folklore in America at that time, a lot of bitterness, a lot of animosity. It created names like Eliot Ness, the Untouchables, Al Capone, Frank Nitti. You know, it really is claimed to have fostered the rise of organized crime. You know, whether that's true or not, I don't know. Organized crime may have been here anyways, but Prohibition was that time. Once again, the 18th Amendment was approved on December 18th, 1917. It actually was ended on March 22nd, 1933, when Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed into law the Cullen Cullen-Harrison Act, legalizing beer with an alcohol content of 3.2%. Pretty much standard for beer. I think, some beers go up to 5%, something like that. And wine with a similarly low alcohol content. So March 22nd, 1933 is when Prohibition officially came to an end. I pointed out to you that Milwaukee, in particular, held off on the celebration of the end of Prohibition until April 17th, 1933. Fully, let me see, that would be 26 days. 26 days after Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed the Cullen-Harrison Act, Milwaukee finally got around to celebrating the end of Prohibition. And I asked you, why? Well, the answer is that March 22nd, 1933 was right in the middle of Lent. Milwaukee chose to wait until Lent was over to celebrate the end of Prohibition. So Milwaukee officially celebrated the end of Prohibition on April 17th, 1933, when Lent was finally over. That's why Milwaukee waited. Our third question from last week, we stayed on the topic of alcohol. You know that during the Depression, bootleg liquor became a very big thing. Bathtub gin was a term that became very popular at that time. You remember I told you the spouts on bathtubs were higher than those of normal sinks. Bootleggers had to water down their homemade alcohol with water. And they couldn't get the bottles under a normal sink, so they did it in bathtubs, which had higher spouts. Hence the name bathtub gin. A lot of really, really bizarre concoctions came up at that time. An early common additive, and this is important because although the making of alcohol was forbidden, all the ingredients, as well as the parts to build your own still, were legal. So you literally could buy everything you needed to make your own alcohol legally. One of the common additives which was approved by the United States was wood alcohol, which was poisonous if swallowed, and it actually could cause nerve damage, blindness, and death. Believe it or not, politicians thought, okay, we'll make this legal because no one's going to be stupid enough to use it. Well, of course, people thought they could boil out, the poisonous issues and still go ahead and use it. Well, it really didn't. This rot gut liquor was used in mixed drinks, and it actually ended up poisoning thousands of speakeasy customers. As many as 50,000 drinkers died from tainted alcohol during the Prohibition. So really, that's what really got the federal government going on bootleggers to try to do away with people making illegal liquor. The fact that people were literally dying from the fact that an unregulated industry had sprung up, and so the government had to get involved. I pointed out that these home concoctions of recipes have carried forward to today. And in fact, in 1969, one country actually put 270 winemakers on trial for allegedly producing wine from ox blood, banana skins, and ammonia. Ox blood, banana skins, and ammonia. Usually one of the ingredients is used to create a flavor that might attract people to it. I'm not sure which one of those three ingredients would attract me to it because that really adds a good taste to it. Ox blood, banana skins, and ammonia. Again, as I pointed out last week, it would take a lot of white soda for me to think that that's a good ingredient for a spritzer. I probably still wouldn't do it. But my question to you was, what country put 270 winemakers on trial for this really absurd concoction, a recipe for wine? The answer, Italy. Italy in 1969 put 270 winemakers on trial for making wine from this absurd concoction. Now, you know, if two or more of you get the same number of questions correct, and you have the most correct, we have a tiebreaker. I hope you were listening at the beginning of the show today. If not, listen at the end of the show. The tiebreaker is the bumper music that we use. Just for the purposes of the tiebreaker, the bumper music last week, in honor of the fact that February is Black History Month, was Bob Marley and his fabulous hit, Get Up, Stand Up. Bob Marley, as you know, born February 6, 1945, died May 11th, 1981. A Jamaican singer, songwriter, and musician, really one of the pioneers of reggae, a music form in and of its own right, really hit the world stage with his band Bob Marley and the Wailers. As you now know, Bob Marley actually didn't even live to be 40 years old. He passed away at 37. Tragically, he was diagnosed with with what's called an acral lentiginous melanoma. That was in 1977. You now know that he died in 1981. What that basically is a malignant melanoma, a skin cancer. Bob Marley passed away from that. But I was very pleased to be able to feature him as our tiebreaker from last week. Maybe we'll do some more of that in the coming weeks. February, Black History Month. Some more music artists that highlight the talent and the additions that black entertainers have brought to our entertainment industry. So there are the answers from last weekend, the tiebreaker. We're now going to take a brief pause and come back with the second half of the show. 3 new questions for the coming week. So go get yourself a cup of coffee or a donut and come on back. I'll be waiting for you. Welcome back to the second half of our show, everybody. We've gone through the 3 questions from last week and we've given you the music tiebreaker. Let's look at our 3 new questions for this week. You know that I love to talk a little bit about Milwaukee history. I'm going to tie that in a little bit to February being Black History Month as well. Milwaukee, you know, is the largest city in the state of Wisconsin, 5th largest city in the Midwestern United States behind Chicago, Columbus, Indianapolis, and Detroit. It actually is the seat of Milwaukee County as well. The estimated 2019 population was 590,157, which is the 31st largest city in the United States. The 4th largest city, situated along one of the Great Lakes. It is the main cultural and economic center of southeastern Wisconsin, which has a population of 2,043,904. In many ways, it's the economic engine that not only drives southeastern Wisconsin, but drives the whole state. Don't tell that to our elected officials in Madison. They hate to hear that, but there's a lot of truth to it nonetheless. The first recorded inhabitants of Milwaukee, of course, were the Algonquin and Siouan peoples, Native Americans. French Catholic Jesuits who ministered to Native Americans and fur traders were the first Europeans to pass through the area. In 1818, the French-Canadian explorer Solomon Juneau established the first permanent settlement. And in 1846, Juneau's town combined with 2 neighboring towns, Kilbourne Town and, of course, Walker's Point, created the city of Milwaukee. In the mid-20th century, the population of Milwaukee really became diverse as African Americans came north because of the availability of jobs. The Midwest was the Rust Belt of America. Lots of good blue-collar factory jobs at places like Rexnord and Kearney and Trecker and Allen Bradley and Alice Chalmers. That's not so much the case anymore. But it really diversified the population of Milwaukee at that time. Milwaukee over the last 20 years has seen a real renaissance, and it is growing into a new city all in its own right. Major and new additions to the city in the past 2 decades include the Riverwalk along the Milwaukee River, really patterned after the Riverwalk down in San Antonio, but you know, the climate really affects Milwaukee's a little bit. The Wisconsin Center, Miller Park, which is now renamed American Family. The HOP, the streetcar system, an expansion to the Milwaukee Art Museum, one of our questions from a bygone show. The Milwaukee Repertory Theater and Pierre, Wisconsin, as well as major renovations to the UW Milwaukee Panther Arena. The Fiserv Forum opened up in 2018. You know, concerts, sporting events, those are all held there. In fact, in 2018, Milwaukee was named the coolest city in the Midwest by Vogue magazine. I don't think they were talking about our climate. Coolest city in the Midwest by Vogue magazine, something I think we can all be proud of. Milwaukee is also noted for politics. In many ways, it's an extremely stable environment. People tend to get elected in Milwaukee and serve long terms. In fact, from 1916 to 1924, it's only 1921 now. I'm sorry, 2021 now. But of course, our current mayor, Tom Barrett, will serve another 3 years. So I'm going to say from 1916 to 2024, there have only been 8 mayors in the city of Milwaukee. During that time span, obviously, mayors are serving an average of 13 years. Now, in keeping with February being Black History Month and tying this all into the city of Milwaukee, let me point out that Milwaukee has, in fact, had one black mayor. Who was the individual, the African-American individual who served as mayor to the city of Milwaukee, and when did he or she get elected? Who is the only black mayor in the city of Milwaukee's history, and when did he or she get elected? That's question number 1. Question number 2. I'm actually taping this show on Thursday, the second full day of Lent. Yesterday was Ash Wednesday. I know you're going to see this show for the first time on Friday, 11 a.m. Maybe you'll see it Friday later in the afternoon or the Sunday rebroadcast. But I'm taping it on Thursday. And Lent just started. Lent, of course, is a solemn religious observance in the Christian liturgical calendar that begins on Ash Wednesday, which as of this taping was yesterday. We actually had an Ash Wednesday service right here. Father Eugene came and did an Ash Wednesday Mass. The purpose of Lent, of course, is the preparation for the believers to prepare themselves for Easter through prayer, doing penance, mortifying the flesh, repentance of sins, almsgiving, simple living, and self-denial. The season is observed in the Anglican, Eastern Orthodox, Lutheran, Methodist, Moravian, Oriental Orthodox, the Reformed, including Presbyterian and Congregationalist, United Protestant, and Roman Catholic churches. Some Anabaptists, Baptists, and non-denominational Christian churches also observe Lent. As you know, Lent stretches from Ash Wednesday to the day before Easter, Holy Saturday. Holy Saturday, part of the Triduum. Holy Week begins with Palm Sunday. Then the Triduum begins on Thursday. Holy Thursday, Good Friday, Holy Saturday. That is the traditional end of Lent. Ironically, Lent officially lasts for 40 days. But if you count the number of calendar days between Ash Wednesday and Holy Saturday, it's actually 46 days, yet Lent lasts 40 days. That's probably going to be a question for a future show. I don't know. Maybe that's too easy for people, but it is interesting. 40 days of Lent, yet it's 46 calendar days. A very unique concept of Lent is the Stations of the Cross, a devotional commemoration of Jesus Christ's Passion on Good Friday. It's a veneration, if you will, of his journey from his trial to his crucifixion. Many Roman Catholics and Lutherans and Anglicans, etc., remove flowers from their altars during this time because it's a time of sadness in the church, a time of preparation, knowing full well that Easter is only 48 hours away. The triumph, if you will, of Jesus over sin and over death and over his earthly flesh. It's also commemorated quite popularly or quite pronounced in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. My question to you is that Lent begins, and as of this taping, it began yesterday, with Ash Wednesday. The church gets those ashes in a very unique way. Where do those ashes come from that we use on Ash Wednesday to begin Lent? That, my friends, is question number 2. Question number 3. February also is very pronounced because President's Day comes in the month of February. We're going to take a little bit of a look at presidential history. We used to celebrate George Washington's birthday in February, and then 2 weeks later we celebrated Abraham Lincoln's birthday in February, or maybe it's reversed, I'm not sure. But within a 2-week span, we celebrated Washington and Lincoln's birthday. The federal government finally put the two of them together and observed one federal holiday and called it President's Day. But that's President's Day actually commemorates all presidents who have served, even though it originally began with recognizing the birthdays of George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, the first and the 16th presidents of the United States. We're going to take a look at 2 presidents who are honored on President's Day, along with Washington and Lincoln. Specifically, we're going to take a look at John Adams, the 2nd President of the United States, and Thomas Jefferson, the 3rd President of the United States. You know, both of them are what we call founding fathers of the United States. They actually collaborated on co-authoring the Declaration of Independence. You all know Thomas Jefferson is given credit for writing the Declaration of Independence. But John Adams and actually several other people actually had a hand in it as well. John Adams, a lawyer by trade. Thomas Jefferson, a wealthy plantation owner. One grew up in Massachusetts, and that was the base of his political strength. The other one grew up in Virginia, the strength of his political base. Ironically, although both of them served as creators of the republic that has become the United States of America, Thomas Jefferson in particular didn't really recognize just how significant of an effort that would be. He, till the day he died, believed that his greatest achievement was founding the University of Virginia. The University of Virginia was what he was most proud of over his entire life. Now, I mentioned to you that John Adams was the 2nd President of the United States. Thomas Jefferson served as the 3rd President of the United States. John Adams served as George Washington's Vice President. Thomas Jefferson served as John Adams' Vice President. You know, everybody has their own favorite president. A lot of people like George Washington because of his role in being our nation's father. Some people like Abraham Lincoln because he held the Union together. Some people like FDR because he, got us through the Great Depression, got us through World War II. Some people maybe like JFK, especially baby boomers like me, because, he was he was the first president that I personally remember, and, the impact of the assassination. Everybody has their own favorite president. Mine actually happens to be John Adams. The reason? George Washington served 2 terms as president. And at the end of his 2nd term, he voluntarily gave it up. He retired. He decided that 2 terms was enough for anybody. The founders of the United States were very concerned that people would want to revert to a monarchy, because that's all that governments were before the democracy known as the United States of America. There were monarchies throughout Europe. Washington only wanted to serve 2 terms. He voluntarily retired. Adams was elected president. Thomas Jefferson was his vice president. John Adams was elected in 1796 to serve as president for a 4-year term. He ran for re-election in 1800. Thomas Jefferson chose to run against him. Bitter contest. The 2 of them actually, you could almost say, became enemies during that contest. Here they were deep and vast friends. They did become political adversaries because of a difference of opinion in policy and national politics. But that took itself to a whole new level during the campaign of 1800. People will tell you that, forget 2016, Hillary Clinton and Trump, or 2020, Trump and Biden. The campaign of 1800, historians will tell you, was the nastiest and the bitterest campaign in the history of the United States. John Adams lost. John Adams created the process for a peaceful transfer of power, even though it was something that he didn't want to see. He wanted to serve another term. He lost the election. He created the process for a peaceful transfer of power, and our government has adhered to that to this day. Now, ironically, John Adams also was the very first president to not attend the inauguration of his successor. Nobody really knows if it was out of bitterness or just the fact that Washington was a long way away from his home in Quincy, Massachusetts. Either way, his beloved wife Abigail never really came to Washington to live in the White House. John Adams wanted to get home to Quincy, Massachusetts as soon as possible. He left in the middle of the night before the inauguration to get a start on his trip. Thomas Jefferson assumed power on the next day, and as we know, the Republic lives to this day and honors the tradition of a peaceful transfer of power. Ironically, the 2 men, as bitter as the campaign of 1800 was, became vast and deep friends after both of them ceased serving in public office. Both of them had notable achievements. Thomas Jefferson in his era, the Louisiana Purchase, and both of them had a great hand in making the America that we know today. Again, they became vast and deep friends, although they never saw each other in later life. Thomas Jefferson and John Adams began a letter-writing relationship that the remnants of which exist to this day. We have those letters. They became the closest of friends. John Adams, in particular, was an avid writer. Whenever he was away from his beloved wife, Abigail, he would write to her some of the sweetest and the most loving letters, and those exist to this day. He transferred those letter-writing skills to a relationship with Thomas Jefferson, and Jefferson reciprocated. Once again, though, because Jefferson lived in Monticello in the state of Virginia, and Adams was in Quincy, Massachusetts, the two of them didn't see each other. Both of them lived into their 80s, so travel really later in life became a real hindrance for them. On John Adams' deathbed, it's not 100% accurate, but he paid his deep and close friend the ultimate compliment. He said, "Thank God Thomas Jefferson lives." Although he wanted that message to be shared with his good friend Thomas Jefferson, that message was never delivered to Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson never heard those dying words of John Adams. My question to you are question number 3. Why? Why were those words never delivered to Thomas Jefferson, even though they were as high a compliment as deep friends could ever pay each other? There you have it. Those are our 3 questions for this week's show. As always, listen to the bumper music at the end of the show. Maybe you will be in the winner's circle next week. As always, I want to thank you all for inviting me into your home. I hope we all had a good time for this half hour. I know I did. I'm your host and quizmaster, Mike Brever. I really want to thank the management of ECTV Channel 955 right here at East Castle Place. Our president, Tyler Gudix, our executive producer, Laura Wengler, my producer and cameraman, Scott McFerrin, and of course my artistic producer, Cooper Ledvina. Again, as always, I would be remiss if I did not point out to you that if you like anything about the show, Cooper and Scott's fingerprints are all over it. They have my deep gratitude. Again, to all of you, thank you for inviting me into your show. This, by the way, was the 50th edition of Quick Trivia with Mike. Soon we will be celebrating our 1-year anniversary. I hope you stay tuned for that. Until next week, I ask you all to please stay safe and stay smart. And be patient, especially now that the vaccine is flowing through the veins of East Castle Place. We will all be together again soon enough to enjoy that wonderful East Castle Place hospitality. So long, everybody.